Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Standout. I am incredibly excited to welcome to the stage my next guest. This is somebody who is living a life through boldness. This is somebody who is looking to accumulate resources and then direct them to places where they're most needed in the world. This is somebody who's living a life that when they get to their deathbed, they don't want to meet the best version of themselves there. They want to live the life and pursue and chase and meet the best version of themselves right here in this life. Ladies and gentlemen, this is somebody who cares about family, who cares about our veterans. This is somebody who is crushing it in the real estate world and has an amazing, tremendous journey through the years of overcoming challenges, overcoming obstacles, and then coming out on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage my man, Corey King. What's up, dude?
What's up, brother? That MC intro. I hope to get one of those in the future one of these days. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That Tom Bilyeu intro.
Super excited to have you here, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. So you and I met in San Diego last year in April, just about this time, and you're a mutual friend of some other really strong investors that I know, some good friends of mine. And I'm super blessed to have met you and learned some of the things that you've learned and put out to the world over time. And of course, love seeing those sunsets that you put out on social media, making me super jealous all the way out here in Ohio.
Always, yeah. San Diego, that's what we pay the taxes for, right? That's what they always say.
That's right. But
we'll see how long.
Corey, you're a real estate professional. You've been in a number of different fields and aspects of real since you were 19. What did that look like? Why did you first get started in real estate? And then right out of the gate, what were some of the biggest obstacles that you faced?
Yeah, I think the most proper way to kind of say where it all started is, when my dad was like a Fortune 500 CEO. And he was basically, he worked himself into the ground. He's like, if I keep working like this, I'm going to die. So he finally quit when I was like about 11. That kind of threw into a divorce. This is around 2008. So he put in a bunch. He knew business, but he did not know stock investing. He put a bunch of money in stocks, penny stocks, variety of stuff, lost it all, multiple six figures. And then I watched him lose it all to this like unstable paper money type system. And, from there, and, I didn't have a lot of, because he was working so much, didn't have a lot of time with him, when I grew up. So I was like, at that moment when I was 11, I was like, whatever I do in life is going to be so I can buy my time back, whatever form that comes. And then, of course, that kind of formulated like real estate ends up being one of the best vehicles for that. So once I was going to be a physical therapist, and then I left for the Navy when I was 19 with that in mind. I landed in San Diego after training and all that. And my mom was going through foreclosure, and I started researching online how to fix it. By this time, I was already buying programs with Ty Lopez and marketing and just kind of figuring it out. Just getting my hands on whatever entrepreneurial type stuff. Making a palette of things. And then if you're doing that online, you're starting to research real estate and foreclosures and stuff, you start getting ads. So I started getting into like different real estate coaching programs and just being a young guy, just getting into every room I could possibly get in and going to meetups by myself and buying a suit and returning it 2 days later, like going to like these REI meetups, just totally by myself, like just no one really on that journey with me. And then quickly realized when these courses say build your team, like no one cares about you when you're 19, you don't have a deal. So putting an escrow team together and all that stuff. So then found an in-person club, and that was out 2 hours east of me in San Diego. So for the first 4 years of my real estate journey, I basically drove 3 to 4, sometimes 5 days a week, depending on if there was weekend classes, to a place called Riverside, which is 2 hours in traffic each way. So, and I did that after in the service. So I get off work, I would just bounce in my car immediately. Through that time, just gobbling up books, podcasts. So 4 or 5 hours podcast a day. I'm like, who's that guy? I don't have time for that anymore. So, and then but it was the best place for me to be as a young guy. I did not party. A lot of my military guys, all they did was drink on the weekends. And I just only wanted to focus on my health and building that business and just always having the future in mind. So through that, got to learn foreclosures, short sales, bankruptcies, creative IRA, like raising money from IRAs and retirement accounts, advanced tax strategies, just a variety of under the umbrella of real estate, anything that touches a short sale or a foreclosure or a flip. And then it was a fancy bird dog, essentially. They train you how to do some basic underwriting, talk to homeowners. You go out, you knock a bunch of doors. I probably knocked close, like just under like 3,000 doors when I kind of did the numbers later on through those 4 years. And then got married, had some turbulence there, kind of stepped away from the business a little bit, then deployed for a year, came back. But there's a relationship I made with a gentleman named Brett. And before I left on deployment, like I was in kind of like a pretty big slump because at 20 years old, I had 3 deals wrapped up. 20 years old, you're going to wrap up 3 deals, you're going to make 120 grand. It means a lot, especially when you're making only 40K in the military. So and then every time that happened, the rug just seemed to get pulled. The deals fell out, something about the sellers, you violated the contract. We're not going to sue them. It's bad business, of course. And they kept falling out. So that happened again at 23. And I'm like, damn, like, when is this thing going to work for me? So deployed, came back, stayed in touch with them. My buddy wanted to get into another mastermind. I was like, dude, I'm not spending a dime. I've been in this for so many years already, it felt like. And I'm like, I just don't want to invest in another mastermind. So I met Brett. I said, okay, I'll go to this meetup with you. And I just immediately knew he was going to be someone very important to me. So ended up hopping on with him, starting to teach Tuesday classes because a lot of the same instructors were at the previous, organization that I was at. So I already knew a lot of the curriculum. So I teach on Tuesday nights like cash flow board games like Robert Kiyosaki, and I teach on advanced banking strategies and how to pay down debt because that was something we learned. And we once we split off from that, he's like, hey, my wife's a top 1% broker. Would you like to come work for her and get your license, and then we'll do both? And at the time, he was also launching a note investing business called notetradex.com. It's like a Zillow for the secondary money market. So here I am. It's 2020. I'm divorced. I'm getting out of the military. I hadn't made any money yet in real estate, not a dime. And not even it's selling a little bit of education courses at that. That was it. And I was like, I felt like such a phony. And so, teaching different things. And I was like, I just don't like the way this feels. So I got out January 2020, and I just went to school and just get the income and didn't know where things were going to go or how fast they were going to happen. And then February, I closed my first deal, and then the market went on fire, and then I got up to 22 million in volume, and then just kind of kept that pace, and we became a top 1% brokerage, and it was really natural kind of segue into the market, being like from the investor side of the house, being an agent. And so I started working with a lot of flippers, and I was basically doing everything except signing on the loan through COVID. And that started to evolve into then doing like multifamily development underwriting and pro formas and studying the underwriting and then building it for them. And they're making decisions on it. And I was like, I need to get on the other side of this. That's always been my goal. And I made people a lot of money through creative acquisitions. I would structure subject tos, lease options, and I didn't keep them because I was going for my dream house in 2021. And then I met a guy named Tom. And I want to, like, for people that are getting into real estate, you can be in for 10 years, but one relationship will literally alter your career forever. And it'll be a giant fork in the road, and you'll know, and you just need to follow that. So in 2021, I met this guy named Tom. This guy had brokered billions of dirt. Okay, some of the most expensive, biggest swaths of dirt in Southern California to companies like Irvine Company, big merchant builders. And there's a duplex development lot. And I brought a buyer for it. And the buyer honestly didn't perform. He was kind of being a little shady. And I shut the door on him, and Tom liked the way that I handled the transaction. And then he's like, hey, I'm retired. I still get all these calls. And they're for giant swaths of dirt and tract homes development. And meanwhile, at night, I didn't know anything about entitlements yet, really, up until that point. It was after the fact I started doing the multifamily underwriting and stuff. And I met him in person. He's like, how old are you? How long have you been in the business? What's your experience? And he just took a liking to me and trusted me, and he just kind of opened the door. And I mean, these were like $60 million pieces of dirt in Mexico, like giant resort developments in Mazatlan and all these different things. And I got them all wrapped up within like 6 months. And I just so happened to have the buyer in my pipeline who did resort developments and had this access to debt from foreign family offices. And I was like, whoa, this happened really quick. And this is leading up to 2022 before the rate hikes. So, and the world, they thought the world was going to break, the capital markets. So I had like 143 million wrapped up in volume. Was really just, I mean, I'm studying Mexican law at night to see how the contracts would transfer. Learned a lot about how these capital stacks work at these very large scale projects. Great learning. But when the interest rates hiked up, then those deals that, it compresses the margin for the builder, especially stateside, and they all fell out of contract. So I was like, dang, here we are again. Big deal. It's not coming through. It's interesting. So through that time, I still knew that like I had to move on. I'm going to create a career with Tom and this gentleman named Dan, and he's just a master developer. He's head of construction for a Irvine company for 10 years. And he's built 12 million square feet. And they're like, would you like to come raise funds for us? I started raising funds for self-storage. Now we're moving on to Flex. And I basically, before I knew a big deal was going to come through, I had no idea. I decided to tell my broker team leaders, I mean, she's like family to me. They both are. I was like, I think it's time. Like, I need to move on. I'm going to sell my condo. I'm going to put a couple $100,000 in my pocket. I'm going to reset my life and build a fund, an investment fund. And a week after I made that decision, my friend refers me a $16 million deal, and I end up selling the most expensive house in my city here on the West Coast, like on a bluff front home. And I was like, wow, happens like that. So I mean, some higher power is like, you made the right decision in my view, and basically said I'm on the right path. And then a friend, at the time, banking was very tight, right? And I could have put, a couple $100,000 tax free because I lived in the property, XYZ. And they only give me like a small 60% LTV loan. I ended up being a friend of a friend, gave me 80% LTV loan, got to keep the condo, cash flow pays for the entire loan, and then just moved on. And then since then, took a little bit of a tour, went to Bali for a month, just kind of enjoyed myself, doing some self-development, going to Tony Robbins. And then this year I just kicked it all off. So I've been head down ever since. So that's a short story long. I don't know if there's a proper place to break that, but I know it's pretty long. But that's leading me up to now. I mean, there's obviously a lot more I could say about what I'm doing now, but that's the last 10 years.
The image that I have in my head is we've all seen that meme of the guy who's in a tunnel and he's digging through dirt, and we on the outside looking in can see the gold. And there's two different diggers. The one on top gives up right before he gets to the gold. And the one on bottom, he actually gets through. He breaks through. Consistency is the key to all success. If you keep moving forward, yes, sometimes there's anomalies where people just hit it big on their first thing, and that's usually what we see on social media. That's usually what's put into our faces. This is what it can be like for you. And then they go sell a course and trick all these people into thinking they can do it too. But man, you stuck with it. You dug for gold for years and years, waiting for those big deals. Little deal after little deal, big deal after big deal falling through. But you kept your head down. You stayed in the business, and you saw your way to the gold. And I think that is so incredibly powerful. How many people are out there knocking 3,000 doors and not getting any big deals done?
Like base hits at the time, yeah.
You weren't even getting base hits.
Yeah, I mean, no like wholesales, no, because they're all flips, so big bats. So one of the bigger things I learned through that, I mean, I was hitting like base hits when I had all those big deals wrapped up as an agent, which is fine, It's like, it's great income. I mean, as much as you want to drink during COVID, you drank, so. But yeah, it's just like, it's all about base hits, right? You can have these big ones come in, but don't be trying to go up to bat and swing that hard every time. It's like, so that experience really taught me like discernment. So I look at like buyers and what they say a lot different. There's more clarifying questions. Can I see the SWIFT numbers? Like when you're getting proof of funds at these kind of levels and stuff, you don't want to, people can kind of fake things quite a bit. I mean, it's still debatable if he did. But there's a lot of discernment that comes through those kind of experiences. I think that's extremely valuable in our industry because there's a lot on the line, when it comes to real
Absolutely.
estate.
And one of the things that you said earlier, buy back time. And I think by
Hmm.
putting our nose to the grindstone and literally staying focused and doing the things that need to be done and not giving up, I feel like that buys back time because now you're 29 years old
Hmm.
and you have a level of discernment, you have a level of experience that probably people 10 years your senior don't have because you did the work day in and day out. And another part I wanted to bring up was you did not party. You know, the story, the portion of your story where I really resonated with was being in the military. We were both in the service
Hmm.
where you were out door knocking and doing all these things. I was out on the weekends partying with my buddies until I realized, dude, this is getting me nowhere. And you kind of had that break off point. But because you didn't party, because you had a long term vision for what you wanted, you went out and did work. And instead, you bought back time because I had to play catch up. I was like, okay, well, this 8 years that I've been an adult, I've basically wasted it away. Don't get me wrong; these were great experiences. I learned a ton from the military, but what I could have been doing, using the gifts, talents, and abilities that God gave me to
Hmm.
elevate myself, so I can elevate others. And I think that that's a really big deal. And the question I want to ask is, what are your thoughts on young people, young business owners who are making some scratch? You know, they've hit some goals and they're partying, they're staying focused on the immediate goal of more money,
Hmm.
but they're not necessarily building anything with it.
Good question. And first, just to keep it authentic, because I just don't know how else to do it. I have partied a lot in my day. It was at different times in my life, and how I view that, and just to answer your question, something that I think I was really blessed with is my father is an amazing human being. He is the definition of grit, and I always got to witness that within him. He is also always the life of the party, and he's always having a good time, but he never broke the work. The work always gets done. So I think if someone is young and they're starting to recognize that the work is not getting done and they can't do both during that time, I'm all about having the experience as a young lad and and being in the military and having that full experience because like there's something special about being in the military, being young, going out with your boys, doing all that. But if you can't wake up at 8 a.m. on Sunday and get your shit done, then you shouldn't be doing that on Saturday night if you can. And there's a certain individual that I think that has that, and it is a grittiness. And if you don't have it, for some people, I think it can get trained. I do think it's something that you kind of inherently get in childhood that you get to witness, and it can be built. It is very difficult to build, but I do think it is the ability. But you just can't. If you start to feel one slip off the work, then you need to cut it for a period of time so you can go back and do that. Right. So like my ethos is I work now, so when I have a family, I have some time to spend with them. And right now, I mean, I went alcohol free for a year. I might have a drink on a very special occasion, a celebratory old fashioned, but I'm not sitting here drinking every weekend and stuff like that. I hate being hungover. It bleeds in 3 5 days later. It seems like these days, I feel like I'm 50 every time I drink.
Yeah, I think some
That's
people might say you got to have that dog in you.
You gotta have, the certified dog.
You got to have that
You ever seen that
dog.
meme where the X-rays? It's like an X-ray and it's like a bulldog that comes. Is the X-rays came back certified dog? Yeah.
No, I think that's so good because I think everybody's got a dog in them, but do they
Hmm.
have that dog in them? If everybody's got the dog, like you said, it can be trained, but you got to have an unwavering desire for something better. You have to be so sick of where you are or so sick of a life that you don't want that you are relentless in training that dog in you, aka the fight, aka getting it done no matter what. When you're tired, when you're sick, when you're sad, when you're hungover, getting up and getting it done and moving forward with boldness towards that life that most
Hmm.
people will unfortunately never live because they aren't willing to put in the work.
I completely agree, man. And I have a quote that like literally governs my life. When I was 19, I actually heard it on a podcast as this guy's, they ask like the three things at the end. And this guy was this one quote. And I literally had my screensaver and I'd say it on the way to work every day. And it was one of the things that helped me put the blinders on. Because I mean, early on in the military, you're 19, you're going, I was putting in leave days, like your vacation days, to go to conferences in Hollywood for real estate or entrepreneur. And everyone's like, what are you doing? You got the GI Bill. And it was just always this like naysayer on all of this. You can see that there's like a masses going one way. And you're like, do I want what they have? Do I want to be forced to reenlist because I have no other means of getting out, no other plan, nothing else I'm building on? And there's no shame in doing 20 years. I think, thank God that some people stay in that are the OGs and they are like old salt dogs and they stuck it through the bureaucracy. Like I am so grateful for them, and I had amazing leaders. I had terrible leaders, and I've met some that invest their whole way through. They're doing flips on the side. They're using their VA loan. Wonderful, you know. For most that have this kind of mindset that they don't want to be limited. Like I did not like working my ass off and then having someone next to me make the same amount of money. I just call me capitalist. I just don't believe that someone dogging everything I can see, and it's really hard to get a raise. And the only way to get a raise in the military is do all this stuff that makes you look good on paper. I'm like, what about being just a better medic? Maybe about huffing more, being able to go and do more of the physical attributes of the military. If you're familiar with the quote, "The man in the arena,"
Remind us.
okay. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. That whole thing is about being vulnerable, actually. So like that is always telling me if I'm not playing out all out, then like what's the point? I'm not spending myself for a worthy cause. I believe that I'm supposed to trailblaze in front of people and do things that sometimes are a little bit more risky. So then I can go back and then tell someone not to do. I'm like trying to get in bigger arenas that are more uncomfortable because of that quote.
Two things that really stick out to me. Yes, the vulnerability, that would be a third thing, because you can't put it all out. You can't put it all on the line and not be vulnerable at the same time. That's why it's important to surround yourself with winners, because you're not going to have somebody shooting you in the back when you're putting it all on the line. You got people who are supporting you.
And those people understand because they're in
and
it as well.
they understand. They're trailblazers themselves. They've been there. They're blazing their own path. And another part of it is it really puts your blinders on. You're not pointing the finger at somebody else. You're not looking at somebody else's mistakes over here. You're in their arena. Last year, I trained for about 4 or 5 months to have my first amateur boxing match, and it was sick, dude. Like boxing was the hardest training I've ever done. I played rugby. I was
so hard.
Being in the service, high school sports, wrestling, like those were really intense. But boxing is another level because one, it is dangerous. It's a very dangerous sport, but it really comes down to, yes, how skilled you are, but how in shape are you? How trained is your body? And when you step into that ring, there's nobody else. There was nothing else that you can be focused on except for you and your opponent. And what is your opponent doing, and how are you going to master your opponent in that arena? And you have the ultimate blinders on, because if you're focusing on something else, it can happen in the blink of an eye.
I love that.
And it's always the punches that you don't expect that knock you out. And if we're constantly looking over here, what's this person's doing? Oh, they stumbled. That makes me feel a little better. It only takes your eye off of the ball. And when we can actually get focused, when we have a vision that is so big, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, because if we take our eyes off the ball, we're going to stop blazing that path. And not only is it going to stop leveling us up, but like you said, we're not going to be able to help the people that are coming after us as much as we could because we're focused on something that we shouldn't be focused on.
No, absolutely. Once you get to a certain point, and this is what I tell also to someone that's younger and getting started. Like me, like I said, I was just getting a palette. I'm like doing social media marketing. How am I going to be an entrepreneur of some kind? I know I want to do this. All right. I know I don't want to work for someone else. I don't want to be limited in my capacity. I love the self-development aspect of it. And the I think the big thing is just once you get to a certain place in life, you go to a bunch of meetups, right? There's no shortage of opportunity. There's a shortage of execution on that. You have to stay in like one lane until you're an expert on it. And I have to police myself all the time on that. Like people bring me other opportunities and stuff, and I'm like, listen, I'm gonna blitz this and I'm not gonna get caught up in it. If I blitz at my contacts and something happens within the next month, otherwise it lives on my shelf, I'll keep it in conversations, but it's not something I'm not your guy after that. I'm starting to get other stuff like precious metal and mining, equity raises and stuff like that. Not my main. I will exhaust my contacts, and after that, it's done. It's really about not getting that shiny object syndrome, as Hermosi would say, like the lady in the red dress. There's lady in the red dress just everywhere. Like once you get to a certain point.
100%. And, the shortage of execution, I get it. I mean, for months, years even, each mastermind, I'm in a high level commercial real estate mastermind. People are in
Mm-hmm.
self storage, people are in mobile home parks, people in RV parks, people are in resorts, short term rentals, midterm rentals, apartment buildings. And I'm a multifamily guy, I'm an apartment investor. But
Mm-hmm.
each time I would go to an event, because I kept taking my eye off the ball, oh, you're in mobile home parks. Oh, you're making a ton of cash. I'm going to go do that. So I'd spend the next 3 months trying to build up a seller's list of mobile home parks, exhaust
Mm-hmm.
resources, not get anywhere because it takes 50% of an airliner's fuel to get off the ground. And when a plane takes off, it takes 50% of its fuel just to get into the air, and then it cruises the rest of the way. I kept doing that every 3 month
Mm-hmm.
iterations. I would burn half my fuel and I'd get to the next one. Oh, you're in short-term rentals. Oh, that seems so much easier. Oh, you're crushing it. Oh, dude, I'm going to go do that. And I'd execute for a
Mm-hmm.
few weeks and I'd give up. When we just pick that one thing, and when you get to a place where you start to become experienced, when you start to become an expert, the doors of opportunity are going to flow open. And then, like you said, having that discernment to say, I can say yes to this opportunity, or I can say no to this opportunity. But
Mm-hmm.
we're so in the habit of saying yes, 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 I need more. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
we don't need more. We actually need less. That's a typical Hormozy thing as well.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Just like the just strictest stoicism, and it's interesting because like he also in other videos too will just like if you're like 21 and just getting into it, or you feel like you're entering late, it's all about accepting where you are, right? But if you start when you're 30, but you're getting into it, yeah, you probably should go get a pallet. You probably should say yes to a lot of things and be working for free for people and doing all of that, and creating value for possible mentors, buying programs, keeping your day job, and having that sustain. Like the military allowed me to take a lot of risks. I had one fixed paycheck, and I saw that, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep swiping. I'm gonna keep getting in all these rooms. I'm just gonna blaze my way in no matter what. And some I didn't have to pay for, and some you do. Sometimes there's a sticker price. But I think that people, it's kind of nuanced, right? So, and the way I view it is people, if they're just getting started off, they don't want, if their shiny object is real estate and they just do not have the wherewithal for that, and they just need to go make money with something else and allocate to real estate operators, I believe that can be true for someone if they start to go down the path.
I think that it's the cool thing to be entrepreneur. It's the cool thing to be a
Yeah,
business owner.
totally.
It's the cool thing to be an influencer. And again, I'm all for turning over stones. The military allowed me the opportunity to do that. I turned over a lot of stones. And while I was turning over stones, I found real estate. And for me, it was like, boom, that's something I can do. I didn't
Hmm.
know where it was going to go, but I thought that's something that I can build with my own two hands. And what did I learn along the way? I learned that I'm not an entrepreneur. By trade, I'm just not a born entrepreneur. I am somebody who has entrepreneurial traits that I have learned because my vision is big enough. because
Hmm.
I would rather work for myself because in the military, you have all these other bosses. You can only go so far so fast. You can work
Hmm.
harder and faster than the person to your left and to your right, still get paid the same. So entering into business, I learned entrepreneurial traits like staying diligent, doing the things that need to be done when nobody's watching, getting up and taking care of business on a Saturday evening, on a Friday night, whatever it is. And I think that understanding what type of person you are versus what the world wants you to be, or what your certain lens that you're looking through is telling you the type of person you should be, just really doing some soul searching. So finding out some
Hmm.
self-awareness, gaining more self-awareness and being like, okay, I am somebody who's a better implementer. I am somebody who I can make a high income with a high skill, but it's somebody else's business, because if it were
Hmm.
my business, it might fall apart. Or I don't want the lifestyle that comes with 7 days a week, 15-hour days. Just being realistic about who we are and where we're at is going to allow us to live the life that we actually want to live versus the life that somebody else has designed for us.
Oh, I completely agree with everything you just said. And I view myself more as like the visionary. I can be the grunt, but it's more gritty. Like I am find myself more, especially as you scale up and start getting in bigger arenas like fund management and stuff, and creating like tech backend stuff. I'm great at using it, and once it's built, but building it is not my forte. And I'm starting to get resources for building that. Just recognizing. I really love what you said about self awareness. I think it's the greatest skill set as an entrepreneur is to be aware of yourself and where you're at. And that relates and that permeates into everything you do and to the way you approach mentors, right? And just having a self awareness. Like, it's not, people say, like, like fake it till you make it, right? And it's like there's a different version of that that's more tactful. And it's not like, like puffing out your chest and being like, I did 10 million. Like, no, you didn't. Don't lie about it. But I like there's a book called Be Your Future Self Now. And the idea, it's tremendous. And the idea is that if you, when you go into the room, what would it feel like if you did do that already? Don't say you've done it. Don't try to talk about stuff you don't know how to expand on. Just that type of energy or that persona, I guess. And then you can still say things that are humble. Hey, I'm just getting started. I've done a couple of research in this market. What would be of value to, what's something I could solve a problem for you? Like, what kind of deals are you looking for? And just figure out the right questions. And then you don't have to just be, there's of no use to it, right? And then be a self learner. I think the biggest mistake that young people that are trying to get mentors, they're not self initiators. And if you can have the self awareness, which is the governing, I think, for everything, if you don't have the self awareness to understand that you're not a self initiator and you're not going to study at night like it is like you're putting yourself through a bachelor's or a master's degree and to then catch up. So when you have that conversation with that mentor, you're not miles behind because they're not going to want to mentor you if they feel like they got to start from zero. So like I'm constantly buying into masterminds. Like now I'm getting the biggest arena on the planet, fund management, and shooting eventually for institutional grade stuff. It's very complex, and my operators have no time to sit there and teach me the finer details of underwriting. So I buy a course in underwriting. So when I go to him, I'm like, "What about this line? What do you put on this line as your assumption?" That is the goal, is the golden gift. So what do I watch out for here? And he can tell that I've been studying, and that makes him want to mentor me more, give me more opportunities. And I think that's the biggest mismatch with young people that are just like, "Can I get coffee with you?" It's like sometimes you're not going to get that because it's not worth the coffee. It's to
Absolutely.
them, right? It's just like send an email. What are you looking for? Give me your buy box. I'm going to go hunt it down. I'm going to call a bunch of brokers. I'm going to bring you something.
That is, I mean, it's the oldest, kind of person. We all know this phrase: when opportunity and when preparation meets opportunity. That is
Hmm.
what we see as luck. When you are preparing, when you're doing the work that nobody sees. I have a heart for people, for the younger generation, because
Hmm.
unfortunately, we have been trained to think that whenever we want something, we should have it. And if we ask someone, they should just give it to us without any work, without any type of preparation or value add or something that you can do for and with the other person. So, what you had said about being a self learner under the umbrella of self awareness, what are some things? I know you mentioned some books, but what are some
Hmm.
things, some tangible things that people can do that are listening right now to go and garner self awareness? Because it's easy to say, but what are
Hmm.
some of the steps that we can actually take in order to gain some self awareness?
Self-awareness. Wow. One of the most intangible things I think can be taught. And first off, the way I view entrepreneurship that could tie into this is you're putting yourself through school. And like this homework is the only person assigning this homework is you. So look, when you know who I really admire? People that go and get a PhD because they're working for 12 years. They're getting in mountains of debt and they have hard deadlines. One of the greatest things about conventional school is there is structured deadlines. And I think as an entrepreneur, you always have to simulate ways to give you deadlines, whether it's an accountability partner, putting it in the calendar, use some kind of, embarrassment's a great tool. Tell your mentors, I'm gonna have this done by this date. And you will get, if you will get it done versus just it being some ambiguous thing. Every time I've kind of not got something done, it's because I was only accountable to myself. But that's why I admire conventional school and people that go through that. Because I mean, it's like you see them during finals week, they're getting it done no matter what, because they have like the credits on the line. So I always view entrepreneurship like that. Like when I'm sitting down at my desk after dinner at 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. and I'm studying, I'm going through my courses, I'm practicing underwriting and stuff. I'm prepping for a final, you know? Like, and because I'm like, somebody else out there has two jobs, they're full-time school, and they are just getting it. And it's not for the same outcome, you know? You can close one deal and make an 80 grand check, and that's what they're making per year after, 6 years of school. So
Yeah,
kudos to them.
100%.
I have no qualms about going to conventional school. I think that some people should do it. Just depends on what vertical it is. Majority, I
I,
think it's a scam, but
I
majority.
agree. Your STEM fields, science, technology, education, mathematics, or medical. I think that, hey, man, you go get maybe not mathematics, medical for sure. You got to have a degree. We all know it. You got to go through the system. If that's your vision
Hmm.
to do something in one of those fields, by all means, thank God for people who do it because Lord knows it ain't
I
your
ain't doing
boy. It's just not
it.
me.
I'm always so grateful. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I know it's a part of this infrastructure that's needed. How can I help you invest your money so you don't have to do this for longer?
Dang.
So,
And I think that, on that journey to self awareness, what you're saying is perfect. School, whether it's school or some type of education, we don't know
mhm,
what we don't know. And if we go out and learn new things, we open up a new world of things that that we did not know before. And now
mhm,
there's a whole new world to explore. And once we explore
okay,
new things about how other people operate, how different sides of the world operate, then we can start to realize, oh, this is an area in my life that I can work on. I mean, it's a simple Jordan B. Peterson when he says, just clean up your room. If you just spent
mhm.
10 minutes cleaning up your room, would it
Love
not be
JP.
better than it was before? Right? So,
Ye-
cleaning up your room in terms of cleaning up our mind. One, get rid of the junk. Get rid of social media if it's not benefiting your business right now. Get rid of
mhm,
TV. Get rid of advertisements, all these things that they're vying for our attention. So we will think a certain way and then act a certain way. But one of the best things I ever did in my life, you would agree because you've been talking about this whole time, is having a mentor with years of experience beyond what I've experienced and he is somebody that he has the things that I want to have. He's done the things that I want to do. He is the type of person that I would like to be. And that's the
mhm,
key right there. Because a lot of our calls, we're not talking about business. We're talking about my marriage. We're talking about my relationship with God. We're talking about doing the things when nobody else is watching. We're talking about being first. We're
mhm.
talking about becoming because we can't first do and then have, we have to first become the type of person that would do that thing. Just like a smoker, somebody who's addicted to cigarettes. They can't just stop cold turkey. Sometimes people can do that, but it's better to say, no, I don't smoke versus I can't smoke. Can't as an action. Don't
Yeah, it's a shaping
do
of
it.
an identity. When something's an
Exactly.
identity, it will stick. And sorry to actually answer the question on tools for self-awareness, I think
Yeah.
that's a portion of it. But in I think the first thing to realize is like you're not exactly special, right? There's a lot of people out there, they're pushing really hard. So just don't have this like egotistical, like I'm the center of the universe, right? And to find that, and I think, the more and the deeper and the bigger arenas I go into and these like just unbelievable opportunities, the more I realize that all the work for the last 10 years of going to self development, reading all these books, going to so many self development podcasts, Lewis House for 4 hours, all these different things have accumulated the value structure that allows someone to trust me to give me these opportunities to then work on them. And like now, my mentor, we just put a deposit down on a 52 home portfolio in Florida. He's just like, oh, send me a check if it works out. And I'm like, cool, I'll handle it, work with the operator, got the deposit in, and he's just like, send me a check, cool. You don't even need to sign a fee agreement. And that's the relationship we have because he trusts me, right? So, and that's, it comes from doing the work of knowing yourself. And a lot of knowing yourself is knowing yourself through others and being in circles that give you hard feedback. Okay. Love comes in many forms. I think the most loving thing is when you tell someone, giving them hard feedback. My experience of you is, you've been sloughing off a little bit. You're not really sticking to your word. And then you're like, oh, and then you start to realize, you become self-aware of those different traits, and then you can work on them. And I think being a constant learner is great. And also doing the work, whether it's, following the life of Jesus Christ or, or doing spiritual, whatever it is, but there's just different tools to know thyself. And I think that being in circles, I'm super blessed. I've always been, except those first 4 years in the military where I was just doing all the door knocking and stuff. I was a 19-year-old in a 40, 50-year-old club. I was the youngest person for 3 years. I didn't really have a lot of people to like go hang out with. That was my peer group. I'm very blessed these days. And I think the quicker you can create self-awareness, the quickest way is being in conscious community, whether that's through Bible study, but whatever is going to give you feedback as quick as possible is going to help you know yourself super quickly. And then you're going to see, because all these parts of you that are not really functioning very well, they're going to get highlighted, and then you're going to want to fix them. So, and then you get the solid value structure that's unshakable. Like I will never choose a dollar over a person. I just never. But it's a value structure that's been built my entire life for that. And then people can feel that, right? When you meet them. There's an intangible there that I think people miss all the time. You can only fake so hard. Once you get in bed together on a deal and that deal goes south, then you see who they are.
I mean,
There's a lot on that. But
it's so true. What you said, you're not special. I think every person is unique. Every person has a
unique.
unique gift that they bring to the world, but nobody's special. And man, thinking about how we must become in order to do and then to have. I mean,
Yeah.
that's getting that
Everyone is
immediate
deserving. I want to be clear on that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go for
Everyone
it.
is deserving, but in the sense of when people get this like, oh, you can have natural gifts, absolutely, but just don't think that things are just going to fall in because you've done certain things, right? There is a tumultuous spiritual and becoming process
Yeah.
that honestly, my whole story with that big ass $16 million sale that just springboarded me in the next phase of my life, it was a feeling of surrender, which comes from spiritual work, comes with, people giving their, handing over to Christ, whatever form that comes in, it's like there is a surrendering to it. And that's an intangible thing, right? It's just, I'm going to let life happen through me. And I'm not in this driver's seat and controlling everything all the time. And I
You're
think
absolutely
balancing
right.
those two, like we're deserving human beings, everyone is equal. I'm strong believer in that, but yeah, it's a very
I
nuanced
couldn't
topic.
agree
So
more. And on the real estate side, for me, you know, as I was telling you, I'd go to each mastermind coming away with a new business plan and trying to execute it. That was me trying to force an outcome. I wanted
Hmm.
something that somebody else had. Why? Because I wanted the status that came along with it. Whereas legit, it was a surrender. Like I was like, God, I cannot do this without you. I don't want to do this without you. But whether I have one real estate property, 100 properties, or zero properties, my worth does not change. And once I did that, that was a surrender to Christ saying, dude, I don't care what happens. You put me on, you put gifts, talents, and abilities, and you put desires in my heart. I'm going to run towards those. But if they don't work out, I go back to you from to get filled up, not to the world, not to real estate, not to
Hmm.
money, not to people. I go back to the source of joy, peace, love,
Yeah,
patience, kindness, goodness,
dangerous
self
game.
control. I go back to the source.
Dangerous game outsourcing to material things and tying up your worth, whether that's in a partner or in what you're doing versus like who you're being and who you're becoming in the process. So it's just a dangerous game because when
Absolutely.
those things fall away, you see who's swimming naked. I really admire that, through like your following in Jesus Christ. Like I admire that lifestyle, and maybe there's a come a day where it happens for me too. For right now, I have different ideologies on that. We spoke about it, but I value the giving, just being like it's not all me. Something's happening through me, and just allow it, follow it. Like the way I view my life now is I'm getting gifted with all these opportunities, like that have been, I'll post these next couple wins, and they'll be like 10-year overnight success, like those kind of stories, but it feels like it's more like it's happening through me because all the work I've done up until this point, and I have so many trials and tribulations that I can, bestow and give people wisdom because I lived it, and I'm very grateful for that.
I see the book behind you, The Go Giver.
Oh,
Incredible
so
book.
good.
How has giving impacted your life and impacted your business?
Yeah, I think there is. You talk about like know thyself and like value systems. There has been a reoccurring theme throughout my life where I've been a deeply empathetic person, and that had to come through self-development on how to like police that so you don't get tied up in everything, right? But I've always just had this natural feeling of giving, and that book reinforces all of it. There's a natural, not you're not just doing it for reciprocity in the moment, right? There are transactional things, obviously in real estate. Give me a deal, give me, we'll swap deals, whatever it is. But if you're just naturally always that giving person that is always acting in the best interest of all, and there's a saying in Spanish, it's called para el bien de todos. It's like for the good of all. If you're always acting for the good of all, you in turn will end up being successful at some point. It may not be tomorrow, that might not come back to you immediately. But like now, dude, I'm like about to raise on my first like my own fund instead of like into these other storage projects. And I've just been building these trust credits for my whole life. And people are like, dude, I don't care what you're doing, I'll fund it. And I'm like, wow, just all these like because I've impacted them. I've sat with them for 2 hours while they cry, whatever it is, and just done whatever to serve. And I think if you have a heart of service, like there's nothing, and people just know when they meet you if you have if a true heart of service, because there's going to be a little task, and you're like, this is not going to make me money, but it's going to impact them. And I just,
Right.
you have to police your time as well, but with discernment. But there's just always being a go giver. I think it's the greatest way to live your life. I think it's the point actually of life. So it's not to have $1 billion fund and win this game and have a high scoreboard. It is to see how many people will show up to your funeral. Be like,
Yeah.
damn, that guy really impacted me,
Yeah. And I mean, so many people talk about being the best version of themselves. I
Hmm.
was having a conversation with someone the other day. It's like, okay, imagine if I was the best version of myself right now. What would I be doing? I don't think that my time would be best served reading a book. Reading books are valuable,
Hmm.
and it gets you up to the point of being the best. Nobody will ever be the best version of themselves. It's impossible. But the most like is far reaching, pouring it all out there as much as we can. What is our that version of ourselves doing? They're serving others at a high level. They are impacting people's lives that will change the trajectory of their lives and the people that come after them
Mhm.
for generations. That's what I envision as somebody operating at their highest level. So within the gifts, talents, and abilities that God's blessed us with, within our unique ability, within the vision that God has given us for our lives, how do we impact those people? Whether it's just one person, just like you said, sitting and listening to somebody talk about some challenges they're going through for 2 hours, or whether it is putting positivity out on social media. Whatever it is, it could be as small or as big. But when I think of people operating at their best and highest, it's serving others, just like you're saying.
Absolutely. And it's just like getting out of your own way. Like, and there's layers to it. Like, I'm going through another layer right now. Like, I really deeply want to educate on social media. I still do not like allocating time to that, but I know I have, I want to develop my voice more and I want to share more and educate on all these things. It's like I'm sitting at lunch with some of my friends, people, very successful real estate agents. I'm like, here's basically what a cash on cash projection is. It was mind blowing to him. And I was like, whoa. And the way he broke it down, he's like, that was so simple. He even recorded me saying it so you can listen to it later. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I love when I catch myself in the flow, it's when I'm educating. I'm making complex things simple for people so they can digest it. That is when I'm like feeling most alive. But there's layers to that, just getting out of the way with that. So for sure.
And really quick, you had mentioned some areas that you wanted to, focus your giving. I think some sustainable agriculture. Like,
Mhm.
talk to me about some of the things that are on your heart to put those
Mhm.
resources into.
Yeah, so the way I view what I'm doing now, raising funds for help people grow their passive wealth in real estate and and earn more and buy their time back, right? The way I view that is it's a playground that I'm learning certain skill sets that are going to contribute to my overarching vision. Like my secret agenda is to play this game hard enough so when I have friends that have 100 million, 200 billion dollar funds, I can say, "Have you ever thought about donating to this?" And use the fundraising skills to allocate money and redirect it where the world needs it. And I wrote that in my journal since I think I was like 15 or 16, where I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to be a very wealthy individual so I can redirect that wealth where the world needs it. I don't need to be a billionaire, right? I would rather be the guy that cuts checks to people like Dr. Zach Bush, who's trying to save the soil in the US, so we actually have healthy farmlands and really like impact driven stuff. And the game I'm playing now is I can speak the same language as a $500 million family office that wants to do impact investing and raise funds for things that actually matter because they don't need to have all that money in the bank and making more money. The world needs to be a better place, and it takes money. Like it just does. It takes whether you however you view money, it's energy, it's resources, it's the lifeblood, it's the oxygen, right? So the more oxygen I breathe, I heard this on a call this morning. The more oxygen I have, the more power I have to serve, and that's how I view money with that. So I want to redirect it. I want to help people buy their time back. I selfishly want to retire my friends so I can actually go do things with them when I get there, and help people that don't usually have these kind of opportunities. They're really good at what they do, right? So they might be a therapist, but they don't make a lot of money, but they just serve to keep their prices low so people can still see them. Like I have a guy like that right now in my circle, dude. He's trying to learn stock investing. He has made $1 in like 2 years, but he just believes in not raising his prices. I would love to help that guy get more time back, to keep his prices low and keep his ethos and still do the things he wants to do in life. So that's my main
That's a
objective.
big deal, man.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that's a really big deal. And man, I am super excited to have you in my life. I'm excited to be able to follow along the journey of one, thank you for sharing where you've come from, but I'm really excited to see where you go. And thank God, just like the people, the doctors and the scientists and the people who need to go get degrees and their PhDs, thank God for them.
Hmm.
Thank God for people who want to build a business on good, who want to serve the world at a higher level. It takes money to do it. So let people know how they can find out more about you and follow along your journey.
I appreciate that, brother, and I really appreciate our connection, like all our conversations leading up to now. Whether it spans through religion, real estate, self development, seeing your MC, it really is like when I see your videos and posting about your emceeing, I'm like, yes, that dude is. You're in the process of becoming something great, and I have no doubt you're going to MC some of the biggest stages in the world. So I am not very present on social media. You're welcome to follow me at coreyking.realestate, COREY, and over time. So, and then my fund is Right Turn Capital. So other than that, the presence, Right Turn Capital, yeah. Trying to buy the domain, but the guy wants 15 grand. So I might get another different domain name that's similar, but yeah, man. And I just want to be very forthcoming. I've had and very hot peaks and lows, and through the last 10 years, and I don't ever want to claim that I'm somewhere where I'm not. I'm not 50 million under management right now. I'm at the point in my life where it's all the skill sets are coming together, and I just want to always reinforce to someone, if they're going to get into this, they need, whatever it is, don't be looking at the peak. Look at like your next steps, and eventually that starts to be like it starts to steamroll. And now I have all these things. I have no doubt, like all those 10 years, I'm going to make that all back in the next two. Not a doubt in my mind.
Absolutely. And just taking those little steps every day, doing the work. Dude, thank you so much for coming on to the show. You were dropping some absolute bombs throughout it, and I can't wait to continue to highlight it. Of course, I'll tag you on social media, but I know you won't see it.
I'm on there enough.
Maybe it'll be a little delayed. But
yeah. No, I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, I'll look forward to having you on again.
Sounds good, brother. We'll check in along the way.